The world you know could end in ice. Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding the seasons broken. Snow that should have melted in March clings to rooftops in July. Rivers choke with ice. Crops fail. Cities groan under endless blizzards. One by one, power grids collapse, nations stumble, and famine spreads like fire in the cold. It sounds like science fiction, a Hollywood disaster movie. But it has happened before. Many times. For most of Earth's history, ice has not been the exception, it has been the rule. During the last 2.6 million years, our planet has endured a cycle of frozen ages and brief interludes of warmth. Ice sheets a mile thick once buried North America, Europe, and Asia. Sea levels fell so far that whole continents joined together, and humanity itself, fragile, newborn, armed with nothing but stone, faced near extinction in these frozen worlds. The shocking truth is this: we are living in one of those rare, warm interludes, an interglacial period, and if history is any guide, the warmth will not last. So the question becomes inescapable. Could the Ice Age return? Could the frozen kingdom rise again? Scientists around the world are hunting for answers. They search the secrets of glaciers, decode the stories trapped in ice cores, and trace the scars of ancient climate across the bones of vanished beasts. Their findings are clear, unsettling, and dramatic. The age of ice is not gone. It is waiting, and it may come sooner than you think. But what would trigger it? Would it be the slow rhythm of Earth's orbit tugging us back into cold? Or a sudden catastrophe? A volcanic eruption? A shift in the ocean currents? Or even a nuclear war blotting out the sun? If the glaciers returned, could modern civilization survive what our ancestors barely endured? This is not just a journey into the past. It is a warning from the future. A future where skyscrapers lie buried in permafrost, where once thriving farmland becomes desert tundra, where billions fight for warmth and food under endless winter skies. The story of the Ice Age is not finished, and, as you are about to see, it may be ready to begin again. The Ice Age was not a single event. It was a heartbeat, a slow, powerful rhythm pulsing through the history of Earth. For the last 2.6 million years, our planet has shivered through cycles of frozen kingdoms and brief warm interludes. Vast sheets of ice have spread and retreated across the continents more than 20 times. Each time, glaciers advanced, swallowed landscapes, then melted away, leaving scars that can still be seen today. We call this pattern the glacial cycle. To the untrained eye, it seems random, but it is anything but. There is a rhythm to the ice, the clockwork of the Earth. High above us, in the silent dark of space, lies the key. Earth's journey around the sun is not a perfect circle. It wobbles, tilts, and shifts in a dance that unfolds over tens of thousands of years. Eccentricity. The shape of Earth's orbit changes from round to slightly oval every 100,000 years. Sometimes we're a little closer to the sun, sometimes farther away. Obliquity. The tilt of Earth's axis, the angle that gives us seasons, shifts between 20 Thorgidig and 24.5 over 41,000 years. A small change, but one that decides whether summers are blazing or mild. Precession. Earth also wobbles like a spinning top, altering when seasons occur in its orbit. This cycle lasts about 26,000 years. Together, these cycles, known as the Milankovitch cycles, act as a cosmic metronome, keeping time for the ice ages. When they align in certain ways, Earth tips into cold, and glaciers march across the land. It is a slow apocalypse written in the stars. The ice that comes and goes. Picture Earth at the height of the last glaciation, about 20,000 years ago. In North America, ice smothered the land from the Arctic Circle to what is now New York City. Chicago lay buried beneath a mile of frozen rock. Canada disappeared under an endless sheet of white. In Europe, glaciers crushed forests, swallowed valleys, and scraped down mountains. Great rivers were frozen still. Entire landscapes vanished beneath the weight of ice. The sea was not spared. Water locked in glaciers lowered sea levels by over 400 feet. Coastlines stretched far beyond where they are today. Britain was not an island, but a peninsula of Europe. Asia and North America were joined by a land bridge, Beringia, across which humans and animals migrated. To live in such a world was not to live in balance. It was to fight. Every day. Yet these frozen empires never lasted forever. Slowly, inevitably, the cycles shifted. The ice melted, rivers swelled, seas rose, and life surged back into the warmth. This was the heartbeat. Freeze. Melt. Freeze again. Lessons from the ice cores. The proof of this rhythm lies locked beneath our feet. In the desolate wastes of Antarctica and Greenland, scientists have drilled deep into the ancient ice. Each layer, each trapped bubble of air, is a time capsule, a frozen record of Earth's atmosphere. By studying these cores, scientists can travel back in time hundreds of thousands of years. The story they found is astonishing. Again and again, the ice reveals the same cycle. 90,000 years of deep freeze, followed by 10,000 years of warmth. A rhythm as steady as breath, as inevitable as night following day. And here is the chilling truth. We are living right now in one of those rare warm periods. The Holocene, the interglacial age, has lasted for about 11,700 years, which means in the great rhythm of Earth we are overdue for the cold to return. Civilization born in a pause. Think of this. Every single thing we call civilization, from the first farming villages to the great empires of history, from the pyramids to the skyscrapers of today, has existed only in this brief, warm pause. The warmth allowed crops to flourish. Rivers flowed freely. People gathered, built, dreamed. For 100,000 years before that, survival was reduced to fire, fur, and spears in the snow. We owe our entire modern world to this intermission in the age of ice, and when you see it that way, it raises a terrifying thought. What happens when the pause ends? Signs in the present, already. The planet bears scars of the ice that came before. The Great Lakes in North America, carved by glaciers. The fjords of Norway, chiseled by ice. The fertile soil of Europe, ground down by the retreating sheets. Everywhere the evidence is undeniable. Earth has been frozen before. It will be frozen again. But the question is not if, it is when. The ticking clock. Some scientists believe that without human interference, the next ice age might have already begun. By the natural rhythm of the cycles, we are due. Yet carbon dioxide released by human activity has warmed the Earth, delaying the advance of the ice. For now, but no climate remains stable forever. The cycles still turn, the orbit still wobbles, the tilt still shifts. Whether it comes in 1,000 years or 10,000, the cold will one day return. And when it does, the glaciers will not care about our cities, our borders, or our history. They will march again, silent, unstoppable, crushing everything in their path. Cliffhanger hook. The rhythm of ice is written in the cosmos itself. It has crushed worlds before, and it will again. But what if it didn't take thousands of years? What if the return of the ice was not a slow heartbeat and but a sudden, violent shock? Because in Earth's past, it has happened before, and that story is even darker. The rhythm of the Ice Age is slow, measured in millennia. But sometimes, the cold comes all at once. History carries whispers of nights when fire dimmed, when the sun itself seemed to vanish, and when warmth was stolen in a single breath. These are the sudden winters, the moments when Earth's balance tipped overnight and the world froze without warning. The year without a summer. The year was 1816. Farmers in Europe planted their crops expecting the warmth of spring. But spring never came. Snow fell in June. Frost killed the fields in July. In August, rivers froze solid. Crops withered, animals starved, and people went hungry across the northern hemisphere. It was called the Year Without a Summer. The cause? Mount Tambora, a volcano in Indonesia, had erupted with unimaginable fury the year before. Ash and sulfur choked the skies, blotting out sunlight across the world. It was as if Earth itself had drawn the curtains. That one eruption plunged the globe into chaos for a year. But what if it had lasted a century? Fire in the sky, ice on the ground volcanoes are not the only threat. In the far reaches of the past lies a cataclysm more terrifying still, the strike of an asteroid. 66 million years ago, one such impact ended the age of dinosaurs. The asteroid that crashed into what is now Mexico released more energy than every nuclear weapon ever built. Firestorms raged. Tsunamis towered over continents. But worse still was what followed. Dust and ash rose into the stratosphere, cloaking the world in darkness. For months, perhaps years, sunlight barely reached the ground. Photosynthesis collapsed. The Earth plunged into a long, freezing night. The dinosaurs did not stand a chance. And while humanity did not exist then, the warning is clear. Another strike could come. The universe does not play favorites. The Younger Dryas Mystery. But perhaps the most chilling story of sudden winter is not from millions of years ago. It is from just yesterday, in the grand span of time. Around 2,900 years ago, the Earth was warming, glaciers retreating, rivers swelling. Humanity, fresh from the Ice Age, was beginning to build new ways of life. And then, suddenly, everything froze again. Temperatures plummeted, glaciers surged forward. For more than 1,000 years, the world returned to the cold. Scientists call it the Younger Dryas, named after a flower that blooms in tundra. What caused it? Some point to the collapse of massive ice sheets in North America, which unleashed floods that shut down ocean currents, cutting warmth from the northern hemisphere. Others whisper of something darker, a cosmic visitor. A comet or asteroid exploding in the atmosphere, sending shock waves across the globe. Whatever the cause, the effect was the same. Humanity was thrown back into survival, forced to endure a millennium of bitter cold just as it had begun to hope for warmth. Nuclear winter, a future threat. The past is not the only danger. Humanity itself has built a weapon that could summon a sudden winter at will. Nuclear war. Should nations unleash their arsenals, cities would burn. And the smoke, the ash, the soot would rise high into the atmosphere, blocking the sun just as a volcano once did. Scientists call this scenario nuclear winter. Crops would fail. Darkness would fall. The planet could plunge into years of deep freeze. It is perhaps the most haunting irony that after surviving the ice, after enduring 1,000,000 years of frozen struggle, humans may yet create their own ice age. Hooks within the storm. Consider this. In 1816, just one volcano brought famine to half the globe. In 12,900 BCE, a single flood, or a single impact, froze the Earth for 1,000 years. In our own lifetimes, a nuclear war could darken the sky, bringing back an ice age we ourselves created. The ice age does not always wait for the stars to align. Sometimes it falls like a hammer in a single catastrophic blow. A world on edge. Today, scientists scan the skies for asteroids, monitor volcanoes, and study the delicate flows of ocean currents, because they know one truth. Earth walks a razor's edge. The warmth, we know, is fragile. It can be stolen in an instant. And the terrifying part? We may not even see it coming. Cliffhanger. Hook. But sudden winters are only half the story. For there is another force that shapes ice and fire. One that hides in the oceans, in the deep conveyor belts of water that carry warmth across the world. If those currents fail, no volcano or asteroid will be needed. The ice age will come on its own. And that takes us into Chapter 3. The oceans are not silent. They breathe. They move. They carry the warmth of the tropics to the frozen edges of the world. And when those oceans falter, so does civilization. The Great Conveyor Belt. Deep beneath the waves, there is a current so vast it circles the globe. Scientists call it the thermohaline circulation. Others simply name it the Great Conveyor Belt. It begins in the tropics, where the sun warms the seas. Warm water flows northward, carried by the Gulf Stream. When it reaches the icy North Atlantic, it cools, grows heavy with salt, and sinks into the abyss. That sinking motion pulls more warm water behind it, creating a loop that drives ocean currents across the planet. This hidden engine does more than stir the seas. It regulates life itself. It warms Europe. It balances the monsoons of Asia. It stabilizes weather across the globe. But what happens if the engine stops? When the conveyor stalls. At the end of the last ice age, something went wrong. Glaciers in North America melted in a great collapse, releasing a flood of fresh water into the Atlantic. That fresh water was lighter than salt water. It refused to sink. The great conveyor stalled, and with it, the warmth of the Gulf Stream failed to reach Europe. Temperatures plunged, glaciers surged. Humanity, just beginning to experiment with farming, was forced to retreat into survival once again. This was the Younger Dryas, the 1,000-year winter we touched on before, and at its heart lay the failure of the ocean's hidden heartbeat, a modern warning. Today, the same threat stirs once again. The Arctic is melting. Greenland and ice sheets bleed fresh water into the North Atlantic at a rate never before witnessed in human history. And scientists are watching the Gulf Stream, the mighty current that has warmed Europe for millennia, slow down. They warn of AMOC collapse, the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation grinding to a halt. If that happens, the consequences will not simply be colder winters in Europe. The ripple will be global. Monsoons in India and Africa could vanish, starving billions. South America's Amazon could dry into desert. The North Atlantic would freeze while the tropics boil. And in the chaos, humanity would face storms, droughts, and famine, the early echoes of a new ice age. The ocean's power revealed. To imagine the power of the oceans, consider this. A single current like the Gulf Stream moves more water every second than all the rivers on Earth combined. The heat it carries north each day equals 1 million nuclear bombs. It is a river of fire hidden inside water. And yet this river depends on balance, on salt, on temperature, on the delicate dance of density. Disturb that balance, and the river dies. When the river dies, the ice returns. Echoes in history. Throughout time, humanity has felt the ocean's moods. In the Little Ice Age, 14th, 19th century, Europe froze, rivers iced over, and famine stalked the land. Many historians now believe ocean currents played a role, their slight shifts magnifying volcanic winters. The collapse of the Mayan civilization has been linked to disrupted rainfall patterns, tied to subtle ocean changes. Even the rise and fall of empires may whisper the story of seas shifting, monsoons failing, and crops withering under a sun no longer guided by the ocean's hand. The oceans write history, silently, invisibly, with currents of ice and fire. The looming collapse. In 2021, a shocking report shook the scientific world. Researchers found evidence that the Atlantic circulation is at its weakest point in at least 1,000 years. Some models suggest it could collapse entirely within decades, even within this century. Imagine it. By the time a child born today reaches old age, the conveyor could stop. Europe, once temperate, would face winters like Siberia. Africa and India would face decades-long droughts. And, once again, the cycle of famine, migration, and war would reshape humanity. Not through fire, not through asteroid or volcano, but through the silent turning of the seas. Hooks within the tides. What if the true trigger of the next ice age is not in the stars, but beneath the waves? What if Europe's golden age of warmth is only a borrowed gift, one the ocean can take back in an instant? And what if, even as we speak, the first signs of collapse are already underway? The oceans do not forgive. They only balance. And in their balance, we survive. Cliffhanger. The oceans hold the key to our survival, but they are not the only guardians of ice. Above them, beyond the blue skies, lies another force, one older than time itself, the dance of Earth around the sun, the tilt, the wobble, the slow, unending cycle of light and shadow. It is this cosmic rhythm that pulls the strings of ice ages. And so, to understand whether another ice age will come, we must turn to the stars themselves. That is the story of Chapter 4. Time measured in shadows. Every day the sun rises. Every year the seasons turn. But beyond the span of a lifetime, there are deeper cycles, slow, hidden rhythms that only the Earth itself can feel. Cycles written in the tilt of our planet, the wobble of its spin, and the shifting path it takes around the sun. These are the Milankovitch cycles, Earth's great cosmic clock. And for 2 million years, they have been the invisible hand steering us into ice ages, and out again. The tilt of a world. Right now, Earth tilts at about 23.5 degrees. This tilt gives us our seasons. Without it, there would be no summer, no winter, only endless sameness. But the tilt does not stay fixed. It swings slowly like a pendulum, between 22 degrees and 24.5 degrees, over the course of 41,000 years. When the tilt is greater, the seasons are extreme. Summers blaze hotter, winters bite harder. When the tilt is smaller, the seasons soften. The poles remain cooler and ice can grow, creeping down from the north to claim the continents. The very angle of our world decides whether glaciers live or die. The wobble in the sky. But tilt is not enough. Earth also wobbles. Like a spinning top slowing on a table, the planet traces a slow circle in the heavens. This wobble, called precession, takes about 26,000 years. It changes when Earth is closest to the sun. Sometimes the northern hemisphere leans toward the sun at closest approach, making summers intense. Other times it leans away, and winters deepen. The wobble alone can decide whether snow survives summer's melt, whether glaciers spread or retreat. The dance of the orbit. And then the path itself changes. Earth's orbit is not a perfect circle. It stretches and squeezes, becoming more oval or more round, in a cycle lasting 100,000 years. When the orbit elongates, the distance from the sun shifts more dramatically. Winters grow colder, summers less powerful. Ice survives and the glaciers advance. This cycle is the silent architect of the great ice ages. The proof. Written in ice. How do we know this? Because the evidence lies frozen beneath our feet. Drill into Antarctica, into Greenland, into the ancient seafloor, and you will find a record of climate stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. In those cores, you can see the rhythm. Ice growing, retreating. Temperatures plunging, rising. Carbon dioxide rising and falling like a breath. And when scientists laid the timelines of these changes against the Milankovitch cycles, the match was undeniable. The stars set the tempo. Earth danced to the tune. The present moment. Here is where the story turns chilling. By the cosmic clock, Earth should be nearing the end of its warm interglacial. The tilt is decreasing. The wobble is shifting. The orbit is beginning to favor ice once again. If history had continued unchanged, glaciers might already be stirring at the poles, preparing to march south. But history has not continued unchanged, because this time, humanity is here. A broken clock? Our ancestors feared the sky. They thought comets brought doom. that eclipses foretold disaster, but the real danger was always the slow, invisible mechanics of Earth's orbit. Yet, something remarkable has happened in our age. The cosmic cycles predict we should be cooling, slipping into another glacial stage, but instead, we are warming. The gases we pour into the atmosphere have thrown the balance off. Carbon dioxide, once trapped by ice, now floods the air in levels unseen for millions of years. We may have delayed the ice age, perhaps by tens of thousands of years. Or perhaps we have simply added chaos to the rhythm, creating a world of extremes. Heat, flood, drought, until the pendulum swings back with even greater force. What if the clock strikes again? Imagine the scenario. The orbit stretches. The tilt shrinks. The wobble aligns just so. Snow survives every summer. Year by year, glaciers grow. The warming we cause holds them back for a time, but eventually, the cosmic clock strikes, and the glaciers march forward once again. Not in centuries, not in decades, but in a slow, crushing advance that swallows farmland, cities, entire nations under miles of ice. Human civilization may not fall in a single winter storm. It may fall under the relentless push of ice that will not retreat. The hooks in the stars. What if we are not escaping the ice age, but only postponing it? What if the cosmic clock cannot be broken, only delayed? And what if our children, or their children, live to see the glaciers rise once again? The truth is, the stars above us and the tilt beneath our feet remain the ultimate masters of climate, and their cycles are not finished. Cliffhanger. For 2 million years, Earth has obeyed the cosmic clock. Ice has come, ice has gone. But now, humanity faces a new and terrifying question. What happens when we tamper with the clock? Will we escape the next ice age forever? Or will we unleash a storm even worse, one born not of nature but of our own hand? To answer that, we must turn to the final chapter, the age of humans and the uncertain future of ice. Standing on the edge. We are the first species in history to understand the ice ages. We are also the first to hold the power to change them. For 2 million years, Earth's climate has swung like a pendulum. Cold, then warm, then cold again. The rhythm was eternal, the cycles unbroken, until now. In just 2 centuries, humanity has poured more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than nature once shifted in thousands of years. We have trapped heat, melted glaciers, and bent the climate's arc. The question is no longer whether the ice age will return. The question is, what happens when fire and ice collide? The age of fire right now, the story is one of heat. The Arctic shrinks year by year. Sea levels rise, drowning coasts. Heat waves strike with a fury once thought impossible. Forests burn, deserts spread. We have lit a fire under the earth, one that shows no sign of stopping. But here is the paradox. While we heat the atmosphere, we may still be planting the seeds of an ice age. Fresh water from melting Greenland is flooding the North Atlantic, threatening to stall the ocean currents. Smoke and soot from fires darken snow, helping it survive longer. Volcanic eruptions, triggered by melting glaciers, may send ash into the sky. Fire may be the very thing that summons back the ice. A world between extremes. Picture the future. On one side, a world of unstoppable warming. Temperatures soar, crops wither, nations fight over dwindling resources. The earth becomes a furnace. On the other side, a world where warming tips the oceans into collapse. The conveyor stops, monsoons vanish, glaciers return, advancing over centuries, crushing cities and farmland under sheets of ice. It is not a simple choice between fire or ice. It may be both. A world of chaotic extremes, swinging violently between heat and cold, storm and drought. For the first time, humanity would no longer be at the mercy of a natural cycle alone. We would be at the mercy of a broken one. Lessons from the Ancients. When the last ice age ended, humans adapted. We hunted mammoths, built fires, learned to farm, and rose to create civilizations. But our ancestors faced these challenges with only a few million people scattered across the globe. We face them now with 8 billion souls, bound together by fragile systems of trade, power, and food. Could modern civilization survive what Stone Age tribes endured? Imagine cities buried in endless blizzards, ports frozen shut, croplands turned to tundra, global migration on a scale never before seen. Even the mightiest empires would crumble before the weight of hunger and cold. And yet, unlike our ancestors, we hold something they did not: the knowledge of what is coming. Playing God with climate science offers us two visions. The manipulation path. Humanity takes control of climate itself. We build giant solar shields in orbit, inject particles into the stratosphere, or engineer the oceans with iron to absorb carbon. We attempt to hold back fire and ice by force of technology. But every intervention carries risk. What if cooling the Earth triggers unexpected droughts? What if altering the oceans collapses ecosystems? What if our attempt to control the clock shatters it entirely? The restraint path. Humanity steps back. We cut emissions, preserve forests, and allow the planet to find its balance. We gamble that slowing our fire will give nature space to breathe. But restraint may not stop the cosmic cycles. It may only delay the inevitable return of the ice. So which path do we choose? The unfinished story. The ice ages are not ancient history. They are not gone. They are the background hum of Earth's heartbeat. Right now, that heartbeat is irregular. The pendulum is shaking. The cosmic clock still ticks. The oceans still churn. Volcanoes still wait beneath the ice. And we, humanity, stand in the middle. A species armed with fire, staring into the cold abyss of its past and the uncertain shadow of its future. Hooks of the future. What if humanity's greatest challenge is not avoiding warming, but surviving both warming and the next ice age? What if the glaciers are not gone, only waiting, patient, inevitable, unstoppable? And what if the true test of civilization is not our power to build cities, but our power to endure when those cities are buried beneath the snow? Closing words. In the end, the Ice Age is not just a story of the past. It is the mirror of our future. We do not know whether the next chapter will be written in fire or in ice. But one thing is certain: the story is not over. The Ice Age will return. The only question is whether humanity will be ready, or whether we will become just another layer in the frozen history of Earth.